but we'll see how it performs on the acceleration. Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video we're going to be going over a 2020 Lexus UX 250h F Sport. I know it's a pretty long name, but it's actually a really cool small SUV. As always, we're going to do a quick walk around on it, then we're going to take it out, see how it drives. A huge shout out and thank you to the Larry Schmiller Lexus here in Murray for providing us with the UX. Check out the inventory in the link below if you're in the market for a Lexus. Under the hood of the Lexus UX, we have a 2-liter 4-cylinder that is paired to a CVT automatic transmission, and yes, it is a hybrid. Total system output is 181 horsepower and then 151 pound-feet of torque, with fuel economy being 41 around town and then 38 on the highway. Go over the front end of the UX. So as you can see, we do get these LED accent lights with the LED projector bulbs as well, and then kind of just carry along Lexus's signature front end. So you do have the massive grille, but one thing to note that since this is a hybrid, if you look very close, you can see the Lexus logo kind of has some blue accenting on it, and then they actually have some nice kind of like more like bronze like trim that goes around. I think it's a really nice look. You do get parking sensors in the front of the UX as well, and I think overall the front end is just really aggressive, and I think their proportions on it are really solid. I mean, you guys can really see that from this angle. Go over the tire and rim setup here on these sides. So you've got two 25mm tires and 18-inch rims in the front and over in the rear as well, and they do this plastic molding that goes all along the outside that is going to protect it if you do take this UX off-roading at all. But you guys can kind of notice the front end and how much lower that is compared to like the NX or the RX. You do get a little F Sport badge right there, and then it has a hybrid badge there on the side. But looking at the side profile, I think it's a really good look, and in terms of just like, again, the proportions, I think it's really solid. Here's our key fob for the UX. You have a couple functions. You've got the lock at the top, you've got the unlock in the middle, and then you have the function to open up the trunk. So if we hold that down, well, it'll pop that right open, and it's popping the back. Now let's actually pop here into the back of the UX. So I really like the floor mats, just the red accenting. I know it's kind of random, but I like that little touch. There is a little 120 volt back here, and then Lexus does give you a first aid kit. Now underneath here, there's just extra storage. Other than that, I didn't find anything too crazy with the rear end. Just note that the loading floor is pretty high up, so even though this does have a hatch in the rear, cargo space is a little bit on the small side, but again, it's a smaller size SUV, so it's expected. Anyways, coming up here, you do have the button to press down the trunk. This basically just locks the UX, so you can lock it and then you can shut the trunk, and then you can just walk away. Let's finish things up in the rear of the UX. So I actually do have the taillights on. Sorry, it's really light outside, so it's kind of hard to tell, but I love the LED lights and just how they have this like massive light bar. I think it's really cool, just like the look of it in the rear. You got like regular badging, parking sensors in the rear, and then again, they kind of finish with that kind of like bronze-ish trim is the best way for me to describe it color-wise. The exhaust tip is hiding down there over on that side, but in terms of everything in the rear end, I think it's like a really like modern kind of like futuristic looking rear end, and I like it. Now coming to the back of the UX, here is the door panel in the rear. So they got this really nice red leather here on the side, and then notice that there is that little darker trim. The texture on it actually just feels really nice to the touch as well. Now here are the seats in the back of the UX. Again, full red in this particular F Sport, and then this little latch here, that's what you do to pull the seat forward if you do want to fold those down. Now actually popping in, you do have to duck a little bit if you're about the same height as me. And getting in here, notice that legroom is a little bit on the smaller side. Now in terms of headroom, I'm fine with that, and if you're wondering, I'm about 5'11". We do get a couple little vents right here for the rear passengers, and then you can see we do get a couple of USBs on top of that. And then finally, there's little cup holders that pop out, and that's everything for the back. Coming up to the front, the keyless entry works like this. So you just put your finger on that little button, that'll lock it, and then to unlock it, you just have to put your hand on the back of the door handle. The mirror does have blind spot monitoring. Now coming and looking at the door, materials are pretty much all the same, just a little bit more. So you get the same red leather, you get that same really nice black material that's kind of textured around all the controls to the windows and the mirrors. Now here are the seats in the front, and they definitely look quite a bit sportier than the rear seats, just with how aggressive the bolsters are. I like the design language on them, I like the perforations as well. Here are the power adjustments on the side of the seat. There's the pedal layout there at the bottom, which pedals actually look really premium. Now, obviously, you got your hood release, gas cap, trunk release, all of that. None of that's too crazy. And then coming over to the steering wheel, it is manually adjustable. And then there's the paddles on the back of the steering wheel. And here's one more look before we pop in. Now to start up the UX, just push the power button, and it is blue because this is a hybrid. And then you won't hear any engine pop on because it'll just do the electric motors at first, but that's everything popping on. Here's the steering wheel in the UX. Now zooming in, we've got the controls for like the cruise control, for example, collision assistance, lane departure assistance. Really neat on that. And then one of the paddles for the CVT. Now it does have a little F Sport badge at the bottom, smoother leather at the bottom and the top, and then it's perforated and grippier on these sides. And then all the controls for the pages, phone, voice command, all of that. And then you've got a light stalk on one side and then a windshield wiper stalk on the other side. And the steering wheel is like a nice kind of like, it's got like girth to it. It's the best way for me to put it. Here's the center gauge cluster in the UX. Has a nice little modern look to it and does that thing that a bunch of Lexus's other gauge clusters do, where it actually physically moves over for you to go through the different menus here on the side. So I mean, compared to most of the Lexuses, it is pretty much identical. It has a nice, clean, modern look, and I actually like that moving gauge. I think that that's definitely a really cool feature. Randomly off here to the side, this is Lexus's drive mode select in the UX. You guys remember this from the LC 500, but the drive modes will pop on here. So if I go up to Sport, for example, changes what the gauge looks like, and then if I go into Eco, it'll change that, and then you actually push in to go into normal. So down for Eco, up for Sport, in for normal on the little twist thing. If you guys want to see that in real time, up for Sport, down for Eco, push in for normal. Now this is the infotainment system, and first off I'm going to show you guys the camera system before getting to the rest of it. So you have a traditional backup camera that pops on, and you can kind of scroll between two different menus there at the bottom. So you got those two different views that you can basically go through with the camera. It kind of makes it like more wide angle with the lens, if you can kind of see the difference. Hopefully you guys can see the difference between those two, but that's the camera system for you. Now the rest of the infotainment system is controlled via a little keypad and some buttons. It does take a moment to get used to it, but once you do get used to it, it's relatively intuitive. And the thing that I've noticed, I don't know if other people can comment on this, but it seems like just using the keypad with my pointer finger kind of feels awkward. It's almost like the middle finger feels like the most natural to use. I've tried to use all of my fingers, and it feels like either using both the pointer finger and the middle finger feels the best, or just using the middle finger. But that is the infotainment system for you. Now, the UX does come with dual zone climate, and all the climate controls are in this little thing, and I just like the buttons, just the feel and look of them. I think it's a nice little look. There's your little CD player just down below, and then you do get heated seats and a heated steering wheel here in the UX. This thing is, I think, is pretty cool. So it's a little 12 volt, but it's just cool how it just like pops open like that. I mean, it's just like, wha-bam! And now I just realized when I touched the thing in the trunk, I said 120 volt when I meant 120 watt. Awkward. We've got a couple cup holders in this little area. This is that keypad that I was telling you, and again, like I said, it just feels most natural to use middle finger or both fingers, but again, just when you use just your pointer finger, it kind of feels awkward. It seems like just because your middle finger is the longest, it just makes sense using the keypad. Just pro tip right there. But here's the shifter for the CVT, and then notice that you can go into the manual mode where it'll mimic having gears like a traditional automatic. There is a full EV mode if you would like to go in 100% electric and not use any gas. You got your auto hold, and then these are some controls for the radio. So like the volume dial, you can do that to turn down the volume, and then the other way is to turn it up, but obviously I don't want to get copyrighted. And then finally, here's a little center console, and then if you look in it, you do get a couple USBs, and oh, what I mean finally, actually, now finally, we've got the glove box. Just press that button right there, and there's your glove box in the UX. Up top, the lights are pretty cool. You just kind of tap, and then the light will turn on or off. I don't see that in a lot of vehicles, so I definitely think that's a cool feature I wanted to highlight. just a traditional sunroof that has some blinding light. But yeah, I think that feature right there is the coolest. It's just the fact that you just tap the little lights. Before we wrap things up, I just want to mention I really like the design on this interior. So I like how they have these flowing lines that'll kind of just sweep throughout the entire interior. Definitely a cool look. They use nice materials all throughout. Like everything kind of just has this nice premium look to it for the price point this is at. And if you're wondering, the price point is about $40,000 for any type of market adjustment on this UX. And again, this one has the F Sport package and it's a hybrid, and all the hybrids are going to have all-wheel drive. That all being said though, let's take this UX out, see how it drives. Let me show all of you visibility in the UX before we start things off. So visibility over the hood, just like most other Lexuses, it's easy to see out of. They kind of just slope down the hoods pretty abruptly in most of them. There's visibility through both of your mirrors in the UX. And then here's visibility all throughout the rear. So the side there is actually pretty good. That area there is pretty large, so there is a blind spot, but again, we do have blind spot monitoring. But yeah, the window on the back, it's relatively large. It's a little bit on the small side for an SUV, but this is a small SUV, so no complaints there. And, well, let's set off. We are setting off here in the UX, and right now I'm in the eco mode, so this is going to be the mode that'll get you the best fuel economy, and it's also going to be the most aggressive with the hybrid system. And what I mean by that is it's going to try to go into the fully EV mode as much as possible, and that's one of the ways that it's going to get you better fuel economy. That being said, from the ride quality standpoint, the UX is relatively smooth. I would put it on average for smaller sized SUVs that are in the same segment that the UX is in. So not any smoother, not any less smooth. And then in terms of the noise that comes through into the cabin, again, I would rate this at about average. It's not any more or any less quiet compared to everything else in the segment, and steering's really good. Like, again, I kind of just did one-handed steering, which I know that some people hate that, but it's really light, and in terms of the directness, it's actually relatively direct, which I kind of expected that. This is a smaller sized SUV, and usually these small sized SUVs, they kind of have that like small darty feeling to them. And so just like initial impressions on this driving, it's actually really good for like a small sized luxury SUV. It definitely fits into the category very well so far. Well, now I am popping it up into the sport, so the gauge cluster looks all cool and aggressive, and we are going to be going over into the manual mode. So yes, it does tell you different gear numbers, even though it's a CVT, and that's just because it mimics gears, but we'll see how it performs on the acceleration. The shifts do take a second to go into effect, I will say that. I want to see if it does a little bit better in the automatic mode, just on the acceleration standpoint, because in that manual mode, I like pressed it and nothing really happened. Yeah, it definitely does a lot better in automatic mode. It does a lot better in automatic mode. So if you are going to be doing any sort of accelerating in the sport mode or anything like that, or just in general, I would recommend just keeping automatic mode. I think that the manual mode, probably I would just keep that for like if you're going down a really steep hill and you want to limit the gear that you're in, so you want to be in a, well, you know what I mean, but you want the transmission to be at higher RPM so that the engine's braking for you. That's really what I see it used for. Past all of that, I'm just sitting here, and I mean, again, it's really comfortable, quiet, and the engine actually doesn't make a whole lot of noise. Even when you accelerate, it's a very quiet powertrain, and so this is actually pretty close to what an electric vehicle is like to drive. If you don't want to hear a whole lot of engine noise, then this definitely fits within that really well. And I'm noticing, again, in this eco mode, it goes into the fully electric mode as much as it possibly can. Like, it's just popping on every single time it can, and then obviously when I get on the throttle a little bit, it'll pop out of it because it has to. But yeah, it's really good. Like, it just does a good job, and that'll lead me into summing things up. So if you're looking for just a smaller sized SUV and you want something that has all-wheel drive, then this is where the UX is really going to shine, because I feel like it's really good from a price point, and I think that it comes with a lot of good safety tech. It's really comfortable. It's a hybrid, so it gets really good fuel economy. Like, it just has a lot of good features with it at a really reasonable price point for being part of a luxury brand. And so if you want just something that's a little bit nicer, and you want, again, safety tech, good fuel economy, really good exterior looks in my opinion, then that's where the UX is going to shine. And yeah, that's where you'd want to check it out. And there we have it, everyone, the 2020 Lexus UX 250hF Sport. And again, a huge shout out and thank you to Lexus here in Murray for providing us with the UX. If you're in the market for a new Lexus, check out the inventory in the link below. I will see all of you in that next video.